Unless you're fortunate enough to still be living in your parents' house rent-free, at some point you're gonna have to make the decision whether you should rent or whether you should buy. And while this might seem like a simple comparison of your proposed monthly rent in relation to your proposed total mortgage payment, it's not actually that simple. And that's because there's other factors at play that you need to consider in the long run. So to help you figure out what makes more financial sense, I'm gonna walk you through what those considerations are, how you go about calculating them, and then I'm gonna show you a real life scenario comparing an actual purchase to a proposed monthly rent. So let's get started. Let's assume you wanted to purchase a $450,000 home, put 10% down, and you could lock in an interest rate of 6.375%. This would be a conventional 30-year fixed loan, which would give you a monthly principal and interest payment of $2,527. And to make sure that this is a true apples to apples comparison, we also need to factor in our annual tax bill, our annual homeowner's insurance, and our annual mortgage insurance. So when we break these down on a monthly basis, we have an additional $1,028 in this scenario. So when we add this to our monthly principal and interest, we've got an all-in monthly payment of $3,553. This will be the number that we use in comparison to our current and future rent. So let's keep things simple and start with our year one comparisons. You can see we've got our total monthly mortgage payment, and we've got that compared to our total rent payment plus our monthly renter's insurance. So if we're just looking at these figures right here, you're probably saying, in what world will this scenario make more sense to purchase than to rent? Okay, I hear you, but let's take this one step further. We know that with renting, we are not protected from future rent increases, and it is not uncommon for rent to increase 3% per year. So let's say that we planned on renting for the next 5 years. You can now see the comparison of our future rent compared to our current monthly mortgage payment. And that's because when we lock in that monthly mortgage payment, we have it locked in for life, unless we of course choose to refinance. And while looking at future rent does help to close the gap, we're still in the hole $35,102, but we haven't gotten to the benefits of home ownership yet. So the first benefit of home ownership that we don't have with rent is that we know that homes appreciate. So if we take a modest approach to appreciation and assume that the home will appreciate 2% every year, and we're looking at a period of 5 years, you've just put over $46,000 back in your pocket by owning and not renting. The next thing that we need to consider is something called an amortization gain. And this is, again, money back in your pocket from making your monthly mortgage payments. So each time you make a mortgage payment, you're paying down a portion of the principal of that loan. So the longer you stay in that loan and the more payments you make, the more principal you pay down. So let's assume that we stayed in this home for 5 years. In that scenario, you have paid down over $26,000 of principal. This is money back in your pocket and money that you don't have as a renter. The next thing that we need to consider is the tax benefit of home ownership. As a renter, you're not able to write off your real estate taxes or your mortgage interest because you're not paying it. But as an owner, you're able to realize the benefit of this. And what this does is this puts additional money back in your pocket. So assuming that we stayed in this home for 5 years, we've put an additional $8,000 back in our pocket due to these tax savings. Now you're probably sitting there thinking, home ownership is the way to go. Why would I ever rent with all these benefits? Well, that's probably true. However, we do need to take a couple considerations into play while making this decision. So the first is the initial closing costs that came with getting the mortgage. So if you've watched any of my previous videos, you know that if you're obtaining a residential mortgage, there are costs associated with that in addition to just the down payment on the home. So in this scenario, I want you to figure that you spent $7,000 on closing costs for the original mortgage. Now we also have to factor in the future cost of selling this home. So keeping consistent with our example, let's assume that we sold this home 5 years from the date of purchase. it would not be uncommon to pay somewhere in the neighborhood of 5% of the sales price to the listing broker and cooperating broker for their services in addition to closing costs. So let's assume that we're gonna spend right around $25,000 in closing costs in the future to sell this home. So when we factor in our initial closing costs, our future costs to sell the home, as well as the cash flow differential, taking our mortgage payment compared to our rent payment, you can see that this does not actually make sense to purchase if you plan on being in the home less than 4 years. Once we hit the 4-year mark, this now becomes cash flow positive. And you can see that the longer we stay in this home, once we reach year 4, it only puts more money back in our pocket. That's why running this analysis is so important, to visually see, 1, how much money is going back in your pocket, 2, how long do you need to stay in that home, and 3, at what point does it make sense to rent versus buy. As always, I appreciate you being here. Hopefully you found this video helpful and informative. Please like, comment, and subscribe to the page to let me know how I'm doing. And I'll tell you what, if you're still watching this video and you want your own rent versus buy scenario run, I will do that for you. Comment on this video, we'll connect, and I'll make it happen. Till the next one.